Joining me is former Hereford United Managing Director Robin Fry. Robin, you first came to Hereford in the late 70s. You did a variety of roles, but how did you get the Managing Director's job in the early 90s?
That came about from myself catching back up with Peter Hill because I was back in Hereford actually organising a sponsorship deal with Strongbow to go back on Hertfordshire in Edinburgh. We caught up, I think we had lunch and a coffee. We talked about several things. He invited me down to come and spend some time at the club. I came and looked at the situation, made some recommendations, put them to the board, and basically they said, what you're saying is exactly what Sun Valley, our major sponsor, are telling us. Agree with what you're saying. Okay, we need a managing director. Why don't you do it?
Looking back on the footage of that era, how hard was it to balance the books with crowds of under 2,000 in the Football League?
You couldn't do it. It was so difficult. I mean, the truth was that within a couple of weeks, them offering me the job as managing director and me taking it, we had ex-directors trying to actually put the club or claiming the club was insolvent, trying to wind the club up. And it was only me going to Sun Valley and putting a presentation together and selling them a 3-year sponsorship. They paid some money up front. They kept us actually trading at that time.
You came under criticism from supporters, reading the old fanzine Talking Bullet. How did you cope with that criticism?
Obviously, I thought it was unfair. I definitely put my money where my mouth was because I probably had more money in that club at any one time than any other director. Directors had personal guarantees, but I had actually physically cash in the club. So yeah, it was difficult. I understand where they're coming from. It was their club. They get very passionate about it, but sometimes the passion blurs the actual reality of the situation.
You mentioned earlier about directors trying to wind up the club. Why do you think they wanted to do that?
I think they wanted back in, and there was lots of friction. There was lots of politics before I got there. So there was things happening behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of until I actually become MD. Even after I left and I stepped down, and I thought I'd done the honourable thing by stepping down and taking, basically walking away to give the club a chance to stay full time when they went to the conference. And then even then, I come under threats from people. I even got threatened in front of a solicitor about getting rid of my shareholding at the time. So yeah, lots of things were going on, and not everybody, maybe what they portrayed to come across were not actually what they were doing. And there was lots of things happening even before I stepped down. Behind the scenes, people were manoeuvring different things around, which I found out later. But I've never said. I've just kept it to myself, and they got their conscience to think about it. As far as I was concerned, I'd done things the best I could, and at times, I made mistakes.
How important was the money from the Darren Peacock at Elon from QPR to Newcastle in keeping Hereford United alive?
Yeah, it was a lifesaver. Another situation I give you, when we played Spurs in the FA Cup at Edgar Street, I was probably the only person there who was delighted we got a draw. We went back to White Hart Lane. I think there was 31,000 people there. Alan Sugar was chairman at the time. I spoke to the secretary and said, look, we're under pressure financially. He said, come and see me straight after the game. And straight after the game, instead of making us wait 10 days, they give us a cheque for £282,000. Now, what that means was that one game generated us more income than the total season ticket and gate revenue. It don't make sense, does it? How can one game make more than your total income for a season? But that's how football runs.
Do you think Greg Downes was sacked too early the season before that? Because he had been given money to invest in the squad, but by September he'd gone.
I think we should have let Greg run for a bit longer. Probably Greg's biggest downfall was that Greg was a lovely guy. He was a nice guy. Maybe not ruthless enough with the players, and some players let him down. Maybe he played on too long himself as player manager. I think probably that showed in the Yeovil game when we went through, come back, and then we lose. And not only lose the game, but lose the tie against Arsenal, which in anybody's terms would probably have been another £100,000 income, net income from the TV money and the spin-offs. So it was a disastrous night, that. But he was a lovely guy.
John Layton replaced Greg Downs, and then Graham Turner replaced John Layton. How did you get on with Graham Turner?
Graham was very much his own man. That was fine. He came with a lot of experience. I suppose before he came, there was definitely a split in the board about taking him on. He came on a large package. He wanted total control, which is fine. He was given a budget. That really didn't work out. My thinking was that, and I still think that, I don't think a manager manages. I think a manager should coach, and the financial side, even organising contracts with players, that should be taken away and done out with them, because then there's no conflict of the manager falling out with the player. Graham was very much the old school, wanted total control of his budget. He had it. But as everybody knows, we ran out of time, and then right at the very death, I think he brought in 5 players on transfer deadline. We still got relegated, but that cost, I think there's 5 players, was costing us something about £2,500–3,000 a week. So we had to take all that money right the way through to the end of July. So it was a huge loss, not only going down, but carrying 5 extra players, and we still didn't stay up.
What do you think went wrong in that 96-97 season when we were relegated? Obviously, the season before we reached the playoffs.
I don't know. I think Graham changed the personnel. I mean, we brought in new people. I remember going to Gillingham. We lost at Gillingham. I think we lost 1-0 at Gillingham. I think that was in November, and we started to slip, but I think the problem at that time was that Brighton were so far adrift, nobody could see them coming back from it, because they were just losing. And I remember having a conversation with Graham. I said, look, if we need to do something, we need to do something now and not leave it. And he was very, very confident the squad of players was good enough to keep us in the league. But it didn't happen. And we just kept on dropping, and suddenly Brighton went on a run, and the rest is history.
Do you still keep up to date with all things Hereford FC?
Yeah, I followed. I made a look at results every week. Delighted for them for what a great season they had. I think it starts to get a little bit difficult. It'd be interesting if they're going to be so dominant next year. And I suppose the real challenge comes then if they then get promoted back into the National League, and they're just one away from the Football League, because there's so many ex-league clubs in there, and then suddenly you're near enough like an extra division. That's when cash flow will come under pressure, because the gains now are just unbelievable. But people follow a winning team. When the team starts losing, they drop off very quickly.
And football's been a big part of your life. Are you still involved in the game?
Only involved in. I very rarely go to a game. I went to, although he's not a relative, John Fry, the chairman of Yeovil. It's a friend of mine. I went down to watch Yeovil versus Mansfield last weekend. Nothing in as far as it's work related at all. I just follow it. But as I said, I'm delighted that Hereford had a great season. I just hope they can keep the success running.